I'm Em,
And I'm Lex.
and we're thrilled to welcome you to the Ready, Set, Coach podcast.
Now, we're not just your hosts. We're also mamas, entrepreneurs, coaches, friends, and co-founders of the Ready, Set, Coach community.
What began as a pandemic side hustle has blossomed into a vibrant online community crafted by coaches for coaches.
So when we're not immersed in our coaching community on Circle, we're busy managing our other businesses, navigating the ups and downs of life, and of course, recording this podcast.
This is where we dive deep into epic conversations about life, business, coaching,
and everything in between.
So are you ready, Lex?
I'm set, Em.
Let's coach.
Hi, Emily.
What?
This is so on par for today's episode, guys. Let's try this again. Emily, are you listening to me? Hi, Emily.
Where are you coming from?
I'm coming from Ventura after coming off having been in your neck of the woods for a bit now, eh?
I think I'm not. Oh my gosh. Denver is not a Canadian accent just because my husband is Canadian. Lexi, I just couldn't hear you because you weren't in my 1 mile vicinity of life.
Yeah, well, you better get better at active listening. But before we dive into that, I do want to quickly recap that I just spent five days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 5 days with Emily Merrill in real life. And it sucked.
How was it?
I'm just kidding.
Oh, I heard that. I was listening to that. Well, I have a few questions for you on staying with me because I like some feedback post hosting an individual. So first and foremost, it was your first time away from your daughter for a significant amount of time. How was that time away?
That's a very complicated question. I think the time away was healthy for me because I've never been away from her for more than one night, and this was 3 nights. So I think it was healthy for me. Did I miss her? Yes, I did.
That's good.
So yeah.
That's
there.
If you're like, I didn't miss her, I
did. I missed her. I actually had to sleep with my sound machine on because I was like, this is weird.
It's so quiet in here. My second question is, how was your time at the Mare Hills?
Wonderful. It was great. The hostesses with the mostesses, I was well fed. Very well socialized. Holy jeez, we went to a book club, we went to events, we went networking, we played games, we went to a club, we did all the things. So it was all a dream. How was your time with the Smithsons?
The Smithsonians, it was wonderful. It was really fun. It was fun. So as she mentioned, she was away from her daughter for 3 nights. And then on Friday, her husband and daughter came and visited. So it was really fun to be able to socialize our small toddlers together. The last time we saw them together, they were small blobs that couldn't really do much. And so it was fun to see them kind of fight with one another because as small children do, they are very territorial of their toys. So that was fun learning where I need to socialize my son a little bit more so he's not stealing things out of kids' hands. And
yeah, I mean, it was his toys that Ashlyn thought were hers. It was funny this morning at drop off. Ashlyn was chilling, and then the 2 other kids who were in the room started crying. So she looked at them and just started crying because that's what they were doing. And I felt like there was a couple moments back and forth this weekend where one of them would be really upset, and then the other one saw them and just was like, oh, I probably should be upset too. And I was like, oh, I don't, there's something primal in that. I don't know.
Well, I think it's like a tribe mentality where you follow the leader, which Lexi, I feel like I'm about to tee you up for something. What else do you follow when you follow the leader? How do you do that?
By listening?
Yeah, good job.
Oh, okay. So transitioning into today's, we're going to talk today about active listening and the power of asking questions. Now, in its form, period, the power of asking questions isn't super sexy sounding, right? It doesn't sound all that exciting. It's like, cool, I'm a human. I know how to ask questions. But if I could get on a soapbox and say, what is one of the most lucrative skill sets you can adapt as a coach or an entrepreneur? It's a skill of active listening and question asking.
Can I also add that, like, beyond coaching and entrepreneur, I think for life in general, it is so powerful to be a strong listener and I'm going to say the word potent question asker, in that from relationships, friendships, if you want to deepen something, I would really start exercising those core strengths.
And what is, not what was, one of your nicknames, Emily?
20 questions.
So
I have a problem. Like, it's literally, imagine when I meet a person, it's like I want to kind of flip them inside out. I want to understand, like, why they are the way they are, what makes them tick, like what excites them, what challenges them, and then I can really fully understand that person and support them in what capacity makes sense for our relationship. We're going to talk about active listening today. You guys know that I'm called 20 questions. And I think that this is something that is so powerful to add into your life if it's not something you're doing. So I think first and foremost is to take a little self-inventory if you are an active listener. Like, think about what, Lexi, you probably can define active listening better. Like, what is a good exercise that someone can do to audit themselves to see if they're a good active listener?
Well, how about this? I'm going to give you some tips and some best practices to ensure, because if you aren't doing these, then you're not active listening, I guess is the way I think about it. From a definition standpoint, active listening is when you're listening without the intent of interruption, or you're truly present. You're really hearing what the person is saying. So the first tip we have is to turn off distractions, which I'm such a hypocrite in this, because I'll call myself out earlier in this podcast. I was like, Emily, let's talk about active listening. And then I got distracted by my phone. So in a world that's digitally connected with 20 tabs, and I have 3 monitors and a phone next to me, silence your notifications, close your browsers when you're going into a sales call, a coaching call, or any sort of meaningful call. Turn off distractions and make
Yeah, no,
nope.
I just
so Emily just did a core non-active listening, which is interruption.
we're crushing this episode right now. Lexi, I agree with everything that you just said, from the turning off the distractions and closing the browsers and being present, especially for a sales call. If I may, I wanted to jump in there and say a fun tip for closing the distractions is, you guys probably all do this, but the do not disturb tab on Apple or whatever your phone is made out of nowadays, pairs, just put that on. Lexi's like coughing at me now, which is really cute and distracting too. But put that on so then no one can call you during your sales call either.
Okay, so perfect. Turn off distractions. And then Emily just demonstrated another tip or skill on how to active listen, which is repeating it back. So repeat back key things you hear to ensure you're understanding correctly. So this is a really great skill set in general. It kind of re-solidifies that you're hearing the correct thing, and in your brain makes it stick.
How do you, is it like a hat that you put on?
It's basically a hat. So the other hat that you can do, and we all did this growing up in school, if we were good students, is what?
Taking notes. And I will say that in this day and age, we also have an advantage where we have plugins that can go into Zoom to take notes for you and send you recaps of things. But read those recaps if you are not actively taking notes. I think taking notes, we do so many things all day long. And I honestly don't know what I was doing before this. Like, that's how much our brain shifts from activity to activity. So taking notes can help you ensure retention, and it'll also give you a point of reference if you do forget something and need to go back on it.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I have actually a lot of clients who have those transcription note takers that join the Zoom meeting. And if you think about it, while that's great for after the fact, it's actually going against active listening, because The point of active listening isn't to recap after the effect. It's to be actively listening. So if you're taking notes yourself in real time, it's going to make sure you're retaining and understanding presently much, much better. So taking notes, repeating it back, turning off distractions, also making the intent. Now, a tip I have here, if this is something, if you're self-aware enough to address, like if you're someone who constantly is squirreling or gets distracted, maybe put a sticky note on your computer and you look at it that says active listen. Put a reminder on your calendar invites. Do something tangible that reminds you to set the intention before a given call, to be there and to be present.
And I think to your point on that one, Zoom, it has like I say Zoom just as a general screen to screen or face to face.
Like Kleenex, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, it's a brand name at this point. I think it's great in that, like, you can track someone's eyes and you can see if they're glazed over, and Lex knows when I am totally multitasking and vice versa. We both have like a little jaw thing that opens up and we're like, we look a little zoned out. But I do find that I'm much more present in a Zoom than I am on a phone call. And I don't know if this is just a me thing or anyone else can relate to this, but when I'm on a phone call, I don't know what to do unless I'm in movement or in motion. So like the best time that I can actively listen is when I am going on a walk or when I'm driving, where my hands are doing something else. Like I have to be paying attention to moving forward, versus if I take the call and I go into bed or something, I'm just scrolling Instagram in the background.
Distractions, right? The multitasking of it all. Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd say you have to pay attention more on a phone call than when you're at your computer, unless you do the do not disturb. So the number, like the next big tip for active listening, and one we're going to really, really dive into, is to ask questions when appropriate and not to interrupt. Now, I don't want to call myself a hypocrite. I want to say that I am a student of life, and I am a student who is always going to need the reminders here, right? So I know in theory to active listen, we need to do this list of things and I need to ask questions. That being said, I still have my moments. Emily still has her moments, as you just see, where I interrupt Emily, Emily interrupts me. And so that's why we wanted to record this episode, because it's a really, really great reminder for us all. So if you're 20 years into your coaching practice, or you're just starting out, learning to prioritize this is not only going to help you become a better coach, it's also going to prove very, very fruitful on the sales process.
And from a user who is being asked these questions, it is so flipping annoying when someone won't let you finish a thought or finish how you're feeling and just jump in and ask a question. I want to point out, like yesterday, I hosted a session, a conversation about the Middle East. And a few times I had to reset the container of discussion because it got a little bit heated. It was a very heated topic. And just reminding people to let the person finish what they're saying. They have the stand. And then if you have something that you want to say in response, I want you to do so, but you have to give people space to finish before responding. So remember that when asking questions. So
can we bring a talking stick? I feel like that's the good interjection. I feel like we all need to hold a virtual pretend talking stick.
I just love the power of the mute button, and I wish that we could mute people in person, myself included. I'm like, stop.
Hey everyone, Lex here.
And Em.
And if you haven't heard, we did something pretty darn cool.
We sure did. We launched a completely free community built specifically for coaches.
Say it again for the people in the back.
We launched a free community for coaches. Tell them quickly who it's for and what we're doing inside, Lex.
Sure thing. So it's for anyone from the coaching curious to side hustlers to coaches ready to scale. And through the virtual platform that we've built, we've created a safe and fun space to learn, launch, grow, connect, ideate, collaborate, vent, and evolve together.
Nailed it, Lex. Now, while it's free, you must apply in order to gain a free membership. so we can make sure everyone inside is awesome, like us.
Apply today at readysetcoachcommunity.com.
So Lex, I love asking questions. I just ask questions. I don't have a structure or whatnot for it. So can you give us some examples of coaching questions or power questions that we could ask?
Sure thing. So this is what I like to say is coaching toolkit, sales toolkit, management toolkit. These questions are transferable across a lot of different use cases, but today we're talking about them in the frame of for your coaching business. So types of powerful questions. First, we have open-ended questions. So these generally prompt thought and can't be answered with a yes or no. So it could be like, hey, Emily, what are your, let's say we're on a sales call. Emily, what are your goals 6 months from now?
Well, Lexi, working with you in PR, I would love to be on the cover of Forbes magazine and Fast Company, so then I could pitch investors and buy a mansion.
Okay, so then the conversation would continue, but that's an example of an open-ended question. Emily, can you give us another type or another category of question?
Oh, this is my favorite question to ask. And I think actually we've gotten better as I've gotten older, because before I would just assume, but those are clarifying questions. And clarifying questions are important at all levels of business. If you are working for someone, working with someone, and oftentimes we don't ask enough clarifying questions and we end up working harder and rather than clarifying, like, is this how the thing was supposed to be done?
So what's an example?
So for example, Lexi, what specifically do you mean by put the module in the folder?
Well, Emily, what I mean is blah, 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 blah. So I think another iteration too that I've used a lot lately is this is what I'm hearing. Can you confirm like if I'm understanding this correctly?
Yes, I want to add one more. One other one too could be something like, yeah, I need to grow my marketing. And a clarifying question could be like, what marketing tools or strategies have you implemented thus far?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so we have open-ended questions, we have clarifying questions. The next one is reflective questions. So reflective questions encourage self-reflection and introspection. So this is where we talk about our feelings. So
raise your hand if you like talking about your feelings. Raise your hand if you like to talk about your feelings at like 11:30 while your husband's like F off. Please don't talk about your feelings now.
See, again, this is where you're CJ and I'm Greg. Those are our partners' names. Okay, so here's an example from a coaching lens how this might be used. And actually, I'm going to use it in a sales call because that's a little less obvious. Let's say you're on a sales call and you're a marketing coach and they are spewing off about this really bad experience and how they hated their last coach and how they invested all this money and they don't really believe in coaching. You can ask a question of, well, how did it make you feel when that coach didn't deliver upon what they said they would?
Not her best example, but
I sure wasn't.
I like what you're doing with that. I think what you're saying, what I hear you saying, Lexi, is a reflective question could be like, I know you didn't have a positive experience with your last marketing coach. Why are you sitting here today and wanting to work with us?
What makes you want to try again?
Yeah,
perfect. That's what Emily just grabbed that out of my brain. There we go.
It to me.
Yes.
Yeah,
So that's a great example of a reflective question. You can also ask this a lot, in coaching, right? Like, how did that situation make you feel? Or let's see, what's another one? It could be, in what ways has your perspective on this issue changed since we last discussed it? Basically, making them really think internally.
I love a good reflective question. But do you know what I love more, Lex?
What, Emily?
I love an action action-oriented question. I love giving homework, and I think you were the homework queen. So can you give an example of what an action-oriented question would look like?
Yeah, this is actually when you pose a question that has the person come up with their own homework. So I think it's really, really easy to, especially when you're someone who's coaching based off experience, just automatically want to default to telling someone what to do. But when you phrase it in an action-oriented question, it makes a person think, what is my next step? So what it could be, let's say I'm coaching Emily on PR and we have this great discussion. I could go, okay, Emily, what is your next step?
Hire you.
Done.
Yeah. I'm going to go pitch Forbes and I'm going to write 10 bylines and I am going to follow everyone on X/Twitter, whatever we call it nowadays.
Okay, so what is the first thing you're going to do with your media list?
I don't know.
The point being is you ask questions that lead them to create their own to-do list.
True. I wish I had that. Yeah. I'd say my media list, I'm going to girl flirt with them. Is that what
well, we would have had a whole hour of coaching,
yes,
so you would know the answer to reflect upon. Okay. So action-oriented questions. The next category is hypothetical. This is a fun game. Don't use this to spiral because hypotheticals can cause people to spiral. There is also a healthy way to use this to innovate, to create new ideas. So an example might be, what would you do if you had unlimited resources? Right? So that's an example of a hypothetical question. What are some other hypothetical questions, Emily?
One that we use a lot is what would you do if you had a magic wand to solve your biggest problem and get people to deliver to you what their problem is that they are struggling with and hopefully point them in the right direction to get it solved.
Beautiful. And then what is the last category of questions we want to talk about today?
Oh man, I wanted to come up with something clever to say this, but Socratic questions. So I always I was gonna say like to be or not to be, but yeah, to be or not to be is I believe a Socratic question.
Wait, ready? To be or not to be?
Not
Socratic the question.
There we go. Bad jokes, the question. Here we go, y'all. So a Socratic question is something I learned in high school that I'm going to tell Lexi to tell you about.
So by definition, guys, a Socratic question is modeled after the Socratic method, and it encourages critical thinking and can challenge assumptions and beliefs. So one of my favorite words here in Socratic questioning is why. So an example is when someone says a fact in coaching, like, I just hate marketing. Going, why do you hate marketing? They go, because I'm not good at it. Why do you think you're not good at it? Kind of like digging deeper and really getting to the root of things can be incredibly powerful.
And I think that's so true. And I think that's, you think about like 2-year-olds, for example, or toddlers, when they start asking why, they get to the root of things. Why is the sun out? Why is the sky blue? Why, until you want to leave them in the other room. Why? Because they ask so many questions.
They're all little Socrates people.
They are. They're like little philosophers of life.
Yes. So, okay. We just went over 5 categories of questions, you guys. I'm going to recap them really, really quick one more time. We have open-ended questions. We have clarifying questions. We have reflective questions, action-oriented questions, hypothetical questions, and Socratic questions. Why, Emily, are questions so powerful and so important for a coach to have in their arsenal?
Well, I think there's many reasons for that, Lex, but I think one is that it helps the individual go inward. It helps the client go inward and actually understand what's going on versus being told what to do. So that's a big differentiator between consulting and coaching, is the coach helps you find the answers and helps you get to the answers versus just telling you these are the answers. Go do the answers. I think that's the biggest takeaway that I have. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm going to bring up one of our favorite, I'm going to bring up 2 of our favorite analogies, metaphors, question mark.
Yeah.
First, what is a coach's job. So the first metaphor is the consultant goes fishing for you and delivers the fish on a silver platter. The coach teaches you how to fish. In that same vein, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink. So leading the horse to water and teaching them how to drink is best delivered or is best achieved through self-reflection. To Emily's point, how do we get self-reflection and self-awareness? Through question asking. So when you're able to pose questions that have your client or your prospective client really take a step back and think, it helps them retain it more. It helps them have introspection. It helps them sometimes be more receptive to what you're saying. There's even a way to ask, sometimes we can use questions to get them to say exactly what we would have just told them, right? And then sometimes they can hear it a lot better when it's coming from themselves.
And not at times it'll also be really frustrating. There's moments where they could feel frustrated or they don't have the answers. You might get some resistance in this too. People are like, well, I don't have the answers. That's why I hired you. But keep asking those questions and you'll get to the root issue or cause or answer. Lex, I also want to go ahead.
I just wanted to interject right there because I think it's worth also mentioning what I forgot to say is when your client answers the questions themselves, they start to build confidence. They start to feel empowered, right? Mm-hmm. And those are both needed in order for them to actually reach the results and operate without you.
It builds self-trust.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you, Lex, also on a question point of view, we know how powerful it is in the coaching world, but how do questions make you feel at a personal level?
Like someone cares, right? And thank you for bringing that up, because another core component of coaching and having an effective coaching relationship once you're in it, even on the sales call, is developing rapport and trust. Not only so self-trust is important, but trust within the coaching container is important. And if I can trust you to care, then I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable. But that's how I feel. How do you feel when you get asked questions?
I feel seen, which is something that I want you all to take inventory on the next few weeks, especially as we go into the end of the year and the early next year, just thinking like, how many people around you ask you questions and actively listen? Because there are those that ask questions like, well, why don't you have kids yet? Or why aren't you married? And those questions can bring some negativity into your body, but let those questions like, oh, your parents got divorced when you were 7. Was that hard for you? And those questions that allow you to pause and to reflect and make you feel safe and feel seen. Pay attention to those people who are asking them.
That's a reflective question that Emily just demonstrated. Which again, kind of as we iterated top of show, while this is relevant today in the context of coaching, this is relevant for sales. This is relevant for relationship building. This is relevant for getting a job. This is relevant for life. This is a core skill to life. So we hope you take your homework very, very seriously, because here's your homework. I'm not going to ask you an action-oriented question because you guys can't respond to me. So I'm just going to tell you what it is. So we went over the 5 question groups. If you were active listening, great. You don't need to tap back. If you weren't, you're going to have to tap back. So a little loving call out. We want you to make 5 categories of the 5 questions and brainstorm 3 to 4 for each category that you can just have in your coaching toolkit. This is something you can screenshot, you can print it out. It can become a PDF. It can be a Word doc. It can live in your phone, but these can become core questions that you return to in so many different elements or moments or components of your coaching business and life.
Love that homework. And with that, we will see you the next time.
Wait, ready? Will we see you
the next time
on the Ready, Set, Coach podcast?
Yoda, I am.
If you're enjoying the Ready, Set, Coach podcast, please leave a review wherever you are listening. For more information about Ready, Set, Coach, visit readysetcoachprogram.com.